The popular saying goes, talent is not enough. So, if talent is not enough, then what are the other ingredients required to make your talent a success? In the last couple of years, the creative industries in Nigeria have experienced a boom of sorts where everyone is following their passion in the entertainment sector. But the question that we seek to answer today is, what does it really take to make that passion a success? And so I came across a book that has also personally touched my life since I'm in the creative sector as well, called Secrets of the Streets, written by one of Nigeria's first started as an actor, went into comedy. Now he's a talk show host and a television producer. So it is my pleasure to welcome to Chapters, Mr. TEJU Babyface Oyelakin.
Thank you. Thank you. It's nice to be here.
It's very nice to have you here as well.
In your house.
Our bookish house, as we like to call it.
Looks nice.
Thank you so much. Reading this book was, for me, going down memory lane, going down an educative process, and unlearning, relearning, learning afresh. And I know you wrote in the book what inspired you to write the book. For the sake of those watching who have not read it, why did you decide, after all of these years being in the industry, to then write a book, also at this time as well, to write a book on honing your passion and achieving success with your talent?
Oh, great. So how many minutes do you have? Question I've just asked now.
Shoot.
Okay. First of all, I like what you have done with it. I see the highlighting and the side notes.
You do not want to imagine.
It's awesome.
How much
You know why it's awesome? Because I've done this same thing to more books than I can count. And it's one of the reasons why I don't lend people my books. Because they can read my secrets.
Yes.
I mean, I wrote those things for my wife and my children. You know, so just thank you. You actually do reap what you sow. All the books I did that to.
Nice.
So it's nice to see this done to my book. Well, okay, so in the introduction, I did give a little background to that answer. I didn't think I was going to write a book. I caught an epiphany a few years ago, and when God started to speak to me as to shifting me away from what I had been doing, which was just comedy at that point. And a key part of that epiphany was that I was going to go out and inspire people, mentor them. I was going to be a role model for a whole new generation of people. So initially, when the epiphany started to come to the fullness of its time, when that time started to come about 2013, I thought what I was called to be was a speaker. So I started to write, I started to come up with what I called messages that I would teach. Every time I'd have an idea for a message, I'd quickly write it down so that I didn't forget it. And so I kept writing and writing this message and that. And after about 2 years, my computer was filled with messages that nobody was calling me to teach. Anyway, now this also coincided with a period in my career where our talk show was also off the air from 2014 to mid-2015. So nothing was happening for me. So in one of those frustrating afternoons when I went to visit with a friend, just to complain again and moan about how the mighty have fallen. Me, TEJU Babyface, just doing nothing in the middle of the day on a Tuesday. No TV show to do, no money to go back and do the TV show. People didn't want to see the old ones again. They kept complaining. Nobody was calling me to teach. When my friend said, "This is your teaching you want to do. You know you can write a book, right?" So I went back to my house and the thing just started to make sense. So I opened my computer and here were all these notes that I had written. So I just took a little bit and re-edited and wrote more, and then I wrote some more, and in about a month I was done with the book.
That is so interesting.
So that's how you have that book in a nutshell.
That is so interesting. And I think that for anyone watching, he is an authority in the field. Truly, you are. But talking about the creative industries and using your book and using your story. So like you said, you started from Diamond Ring, and at the time it was the biggest thing in Nollywood since sliced bread,
yes,
like they like to say. So you became superstar, and you wanted to become an actor.
Yes.
And you thought that was your destiny.
Oh, I thought that was it. That was, I mean, I was going to be an actor.
And many young people and people in the industry generally, you come out with, oh, I have a lovely voice, my destiny is singing, I can do this, is acting, is this, is that. But the acting never worked out for you.
Yeah. Oh, no. I say, yeah. No, it didn't.
No, it did, exactly. No, it didn't work out for you. How did you, and a lot of people get stuck in that space where you just think, my talent's my talent. How did you then make this transition from, okay, acting is not working, I'm going into comedy, and how would you advise people to make that transition?
Suffering, it is hunger begets talent, a friend of mine likes. He said, look, think of it this way. So this film came out, I was in the University of Lagos, and I became an instant star, and you know, all the girls who didn't give me the time of day.
You said a story about a particular girl.
Suddenly became nicer. But like all things, entertainment, after a while, the shine of your star begins to lose its glow, its efficacy. My star was beginning to dim, so I was running all over the place trying to get acting roles, you know. But nobody was giving them to me. So I had to literally start going for auditions again. Nobody was giving me the role. So it was one day when I went to Fred Amata's office, Fred Amata, whom I'd never met. So I said I wanted to see him, and they allowed me in. As soon as he saw me, so boy, no be you be that boy with the Tadio Gido film. I said yes. So you the craze. So boy, I like you. Sit down. So I sat down. They offered me soft drinks. They said, so what can I do for you? I said, look, bro, since I acted that film almost a year ago now, nothing. I've gone for auditions. I've gone for everything. He said, well, I'm going to tell you the truth. He said, your problem is that where you started from is where people spend many years in the industry hoping to get to.
So you started from the top.
So you started from the very apex of the industry. In your very first outing, you acted in a film directed by Tadio Gido in a major role opposite Richard Mofedamijo, Liz Benson, Bimbo Akitola, Zainab Buki Ajayi, and all the stars. He said, so after that, it's hard to cast you in anything because you have acted with the masters. He said there are only about 3 or 4 masters. Tunde Kelani, Amaka Igwe, Tadio Gido, and maybe 1 or 2 others. So he said, and those guys don't do films every year. He said, on the other hand, it's also the fact that the role you played and the way you look speaks of, you know, class and pedigree. And the movies we are doing now, you can see ritualistic films. It's Zaza, it's Zozo, it's Zagaba, it's Dudu. He said, just look at you. He said, so you're going to find it difficult. So he said, I wish you the best. So I went back to school. Started to think my life. Meanwhile, at that point, TA, who was in University of Lagos with me, had in front of us become a superstar comedian. TA was just a normal broke student. And he had been saying he wanted to do comedy and he had been doing a bit on campus, but we didn't pay attention to him. And then suddenly he went away for a few months, came back and he was this superstar. So apparently he met Ali Baba. Ali Baba took him under his wing and TA became TA. And right in front of us, TA bought a car. And then bought another car. He was driving a Honda Accord on campus, and that was my own dream, to own a car. Of all the dreams I had as a student, it wasn't about having 2-1 or graduate, it was to have a car. And TA was there driving a car from doing comedy. So I was like, I'm funny now. So that's how the comedy journey began. So my advice to you, look, you must always yield. You must always yield. And that's what I said in chapter 1 of the book. There's a low-hanging fruit at every point in your life. Usually you think you have many options. But when you consider, you really do not have many viable options. At every point, regardless of your talent, say you want to be a singer, and being a singer is becoming so difficult. That means that singing is not your low-hanging fruit. There is always something that you can reach for.
Immediately, right?
And begin to express yourself. Now, I'm not saying it will be easy. It's never easy, but it will be simple enough to reach for it. There's always a way you can begin to express your talent immediately. So I wanted to be an actor, but it wasn't happening. And right there in front of me, I could be a comedian. Why? Because comedy does not need any directors. You don't need to be cast in anything. You just need to put yourself around all the hall shows in school. Miss Morimi, Madam Tinubu, and say I'm a comedian. And say, just give me 2 minutes on the microphone. And so that was how I started to do that. So if you're a young person who is finding it hard to do what you thought you wanted to do, examine it again. Do you not have any other talents or inclinations that you can immediately begin to make happen for yourself, immediately, by yourself? Look, there's not enough time to talk about all of this. I just always did what I thought I had to do at any point in time. I guess it goes back to the fact that in my mind's eye, even as a child, I saw myself being very successful. And so it was always in pursuit of that. And at every point in time, whenever I was doing something, I was always convinced at that time that I was the best in it. When I decided to become a comedian, at that time I was convinced I was the best young talent in the country.
Wow.
At that time. So there was nothing you could tell me that could put me off. You know, and that is the thing again. That's how you know that you have found your low-hanging fruit. Is that the moment you take the step, the first step, to begin to do what you are now convinced that you should do, you will find that the universe starts to align. For example, how is it that I decided that I wanted to become a comedian? And then my friend with whom I was in the same room, that we slept in the same room many times, Kayode Peters.
Is that so?
Yes. Kayode Peters just met Basoj Taria Jr., who was one of the biggest comedians in the country at that time, and offered to introduce me. I mean, think about it. What powers were moving in the universe to make sure that having decided I wanted to become a comedian, and I started to become a comedian performing in school, I now decided that I needed to link up with one of the major comedy names. All of a sudden, my friend Kayode Peters, whom I had known at that point for 3 years, suddenly met Basoj somewhere a month earlier. And introduced me to Basoj. And then Basoj decided to train me. And it was Basoj that got me into Night of 1,000 Laughs. Now, about all the challenges, this is why it is key that you find mentors.
We will go into that when we come back from this short break, because that part of mentoring, like you said, is one of the most important things in life that you wrote in the book. So, but we'll go on a short break now, and when we come back, we continue to talk about secrets of the streets and the different concepts that Mr. TEJU Babyface Oyelakin has brought out from this book. We'll be right back. You are welcome back to Chapters. And on today's episode, we're talking about the very important discourse of making your talent successful. And before the break, Mr. Oyelakin was talking about mentoring, the very important subject again of mentoring. Now, in your book, I'm going to read out a quote you mentioned in your book, but you were saying something about why mentoring is important.
Well, I mean, it is. It's how I ever got the... I ever learned the ropes in the industry, but more importantly, the confidence that my mentor gave me. As I wrote in the book, I think it was in the first chapter, I had difficulty coming across to the public as a comedian. Back in the day, the few that were known and were successful were basically Niger Delta people. I mean, with the exception of TA, who was, a Yoruba boy, but he was in the minority, a very minor minority. You know, most people were from the Niger Delta anyway, so not only did I not come from the Niger Delta, I also looked like butter. It was difficult. So it was my mentor, my first mentor, Basoj Taria. As soon as he saw me, he said it all. He said, you're going to have problems in this industry, given the way you look, how you carry yourself, your courage. He said, you have pedigree. That's the word he liked to use, pedigree. He said, you have pedigree and your pedigree will be a problem. Initially, he said, however, I will train you so that your pedigree becomes a strength. Because on the highest level, that pedigree is actually what makes the best comedians. You must be able to communicate your craft. You must be able to carry your jokes across, your humor across in good English. If you can't stand on stage and entertain people who are not Nigerians, then your growth will be stifled. But you already have it. So I will train you to hone it, but also I will train you to be encouraged so that you don't lose the the verve.
Yes.
So that's why mentors are important. That's how I was able to navigate all the waters of the discouragement and all the other things that I went through.
But there's something you mentioned when you were talking timing.
Yeah.
And you talked about timing in this book in interesting ways. So there is and you said it was something your father said, slow but steady. He merged to
make haste slowly.
Make haste slowly.
Yes.
Now, there is the place of... Let me read what you said in the book first. So you said, it simply means that while you must indeed make hay while the sun shines, and you must embark on whatever venture life has called you to immediately, you must also learn to bid your time while preparing yourself. So we're in a society where everybody wants to...
I wrote that. Oh, no, you write too. I wrote that. You know what? Even I was just impressed. No, wow.
You're a character.
I write too.
Yes, I think you need to read this book.
No, I've read it too many times. You know how many times?
Are you sure?
I read this book before.
I think you need to read it again. But how do you do that thing where you know that I have this skill, I have this talent? So you are waiting for the day of explosion, but at the same time, your day of showing, but at the same time, you are being slow and steady.
Okay, great. How do you work on yourself while you wait for, you will always know, because the greatest moves that will happen for you in trying to to express your talent will happen outside of your control. It will be serendipitous, so to speak. But it won't happen unless you've spent time develop. Let me shock you with one of those things. I was writing this book, right? I was in the process of writing it. I was halfway through. I was wondering how I would ever publish it. When one of the men I know, older than me, called me and said, "Hey, we're doing something in Abuja. I want you to come and be MC. It is the launch of our magazine." So I went to Abuja and I saw the magazine they were launching, and it was beautiful, it was glossy, it was well done. So I asked him, I said, "This is wonderful.
Who published this?"
Who published it? He said, "We have a publishing press." I'm like, "Wow, I'm writing a book." He said, "Hey, send it over." So I sent it over to him, and he read it, and he edited it, and they published it. Before I started to write the book, I didn't know how I would ever find a publisher in Nigeria. So when you begin to move on the low-hanging fruit, like I said,
that's how you said earlier, the universe will just come together.
The universe begins to align. Like I said again, I was in my house doing nothing for almost 2 years, no television show, and I had this book I wasn't writing, and somebody said, "Write the book." And so I started to write the book. And the moment I started to write the book, things started to align all of a sudden. And somebody called me and said, "Come and launch this magazine for us." And I did. Publisher. And all of a sudden, I found the publisher. So those things happen. So when we say make haste slowly, if I wasn't making haste slowly, what I would have done before starting to write the book was to start to look for a publisher.
Exactly.
And start running up and down.
Exactly.
Where's the book you want to publish? It's not ready yet. I just want to know that
there's
you
a
are
publisher.
there. There's always something you can start to do by yourself that is within your power. A mentor of mine likes to say that God will never put whatever it is you need to fulfill your destiny per time beyond your reach. Whatever it is you need to fulfill your destiny per time, to get you from this stage to the next stage, God will never put it with outside your reach. If you're trying and you can't reach it, then stop and think again. There is always something that you have that is within your own reach that you can always use to get yourself to the next level. And usually when you're trying to express your talent, that is in making that talent work. You must success usually meets you when you're in motion. Success doesn't meet a body at rest.
Success meets you when you're in motion.
It doesn't meet a body at rest usually. You must move on your gift. You must use your gift.
Don't
and you
sit
see,
in your house and say,
using your gift is an expression of faith anyway. You're thinking that if I do this, I don't know how to work out, but let me start doing this. Yeah. So that is what it means, make haste slowly. Don't rush out to announce yourself to the world. Hey, I'm a book writer, so where's the book is coming?
Wow. That's all I can say.
But we don't have time. We have time.
We don't, but you know.
See me stuttering. Sometimes when I stutter, when I'm speaking to you, it's because in my head I've abridged a thought. I've just jumped from one thought to another. We
have to go on a short break right now. When we come back, we'll take about 2 or 3 more concepts. Now, I didn't mention that the book is called Secrets of the Streets, and he wrote 23 secrets. I'm not sure we've touched 4. So there's a lot left unsaid, but there's no time. We're confined to the time we have. But we'll be back after this break, and we'll continue this very interesting, important conversation. Don't go anywhere. You are welcome back to Chapters, and I've been having a very engaging and enlightening conversation on how to make our talents, especially for those of us in the creative sector, a success. And I'm going to read a quote from the book. Remember, it's the book Secrets of the Streets, written by my very special guest, Mr. TEJU Babyface Oyelakin. And he says here, perish the thought that good intentions and originality will see you through. While those are important things to have as they form part of the springboard for your takeoff, they are never enough.
See, I'm going to have that effect on you.
You are truly speaking. It's coming.
No, it's good. It's okay. It's all right.
That was unexpected.
It's okay now.
But talking about that, I want us to quickly go to a chapter for the last couple of minutes we have. Yes, which is also here in Secret 16, The Secret of the Lilliput. And this is the time when people are in that space where it's been hard. It's been tough. I've been pushing. This thing is not working. And you then gave the example of, the analogy of, do I give up or do I give in? Explain the difference between those two.
Okay. Giving up, as far as I'm concerned, is not always a bad thing. When you give in, that means you've ceded power, your authority, your emotional energy to frustration. You've given it away. Like after, I can't see my way clear. I was encouraging somebody recently. I was mentoring somebody, and I said to them that going through difficulty is not the biggest problem. you're having difficulty with your career, things are not going well, this is December, Christmas is coming, things are hard. I said that's not the most difficult part, as difficult as that is. The most difficult part for most people is going through that and not being able to see their way clear. They just don't see how this can get better.
You're right.
That's the one that kills people. Right. It's at that point that people give in. And that's where I'm not a psychologist, but I figure that's why, that's one of the reasons why you have suicide cases, when people can't just see any way out of this. So what we're saying is don't give in. The system, especially around here, if you do business in Nigeria, can batter you. Sometimes you're almost convinced that there are entities
working to make sure.
There are entities who have your file on their table, who are just doing, their job is just to make sure that whatever you do does not succeed. Yeah. But it's just an illusion. Because life has a way of bending to constancy. If I have to leave one thing with you, just one thing, if I have to leave one thing with you, a 40% student, 40% when I was in school is when they give you D minus, just let him go. At 40%, just let him go. Just let him go to the next class. Anything below 40, then you have to retake the class or retake the paper. A student who scores 40% consistently will eventually outdo a student who has 90 and then 10 and 80 and then 5. So life has a way of bending to constancy. With the little resources that you have, if you constantly just keep on hammering away at it and not giving up, sooner or later, life is going to give you what you want. And I know this, having done television for a few years. One of the biggest mistakes I made in television was I allowed all the pressures of the environment to get to me. In those days, anytime the frustration got to me, I'll stop producing my show for a few months until I could get the verve and the vavavoom. What those times of air cost me in terms of momentum, I can't put into words for you. If I had known from the beginning, rather than try to shoot for 90%, I'd have taken the resources that I had and shot for 50%. Make 50% go longer than 90% will go shorter.
That's powerful.
So what that chapter means is don't give in to the pressures of this environment. Basically speaking, do like an African woman will do when she's about to enter a fight in the marketplace. She removes her head tie and ties it around her waist and says, it is me and you today. You have to have that attitude to things if you're going to succeed around it. And I can promise you, like I said, it's just a facade. And it is not the enemy that is doing that. Whenever the enemy does that, it is the creator that seeds the power to the enemy to test you.
Yes.
You say you want to do this. That's the creator asking you. That is life asking you. That is providence asking you. You say you want the cars and you want the fame and you say you're going to touch people and you're going to change lives. You say that this is your dream and you're passionate about. Okay, let's see how your passion fares in the face. Yes, because gold only comes refined through the fire. So don't give in when you're going through the fire. At the end of the day, if you're able to stay there, you will come out refined. I'm not saying during that time, don't slap your dog, kick your cat, drown your goldfish, break a few plates, punch the pillow, smash your phone, do all that. I'm not saying cry, stay in bed for a week, mope. But after all that, come back and keep on doing it. Just keep on doing it. Eventually, life will just say, you know what, look, there are too many people that are giving. So just keep on doing it. I know you've heard it before, but you can take it from me. I wrote a book, wrote a book.
A book with deep quotes.
A book with deep me. I need to get a copy of this.
you should.
You have read some things and the guy that wrote this book, I should get myself a copy.
So before I let you go, and I really don't want to let you go, but time is gone. There's something that I really want us to talk about, the secret of the hip and the hop, and understanding focus. And that was where you talked about the fact that some people say, I work in a bank, but I can sing. Let me do this and do that together. Or for those of us who can sing, dance, jump, laugh, and then which one do I want to do? This is where the money is coming from. And you talked about the low-hanging fruit. Maybe that's the low-hanging fruit. Then you're asking me to leave and focus on.
Right in there, you've asked me 3 different questions, so you have to pick one. Which one are we
The
answering?
secret of the hip and the hop.
Okay. Look, about leaving. Let's clear one thing. Let's just clear one thing.
Clear.
Most people will never fulfill their destinies because of fear. Because you suspect that if you pursue what you think you should pursue, what life is pushing you towards, your friends are telling you, your parents, even your parents,
Especially
Sometimes I'm telling you, you're having dreams about it. It's what you like, you want to do, but you're afraid because you have a job, which, as you have said, is the low hanging fruit that brings the money, and you're afraid that if you leave it, you will suffer. Look, you are going to suffer. Whether you leave it or you don't leave it, there is suffering. There's just a kind of power and empowering that you get when you step out on your own, on the instructions of providence. Look, all of us without exception at a point are going to hear a call. At some point, regardless of what you're doing with your life, at some point your heart is going to start tugging you
to a certain direction.
To a certain area. Your heart is going to start tugging you. It's going to show up in the kind of books you like to read all of a sudden, the kind of TV programs you like to watch, the kind of conversations you like to have, It's going to show up. Your heart is going to start tugging you. But fear is going to come in, and fear is going to threaten you. Fortunately, some of us have natural blinders in life. We just leap. So if the fear of suffering is what is holding you in your current job, well, I'm sorry for you, because you see, at the end of it all, you're going to look back one day, regardless of how much you have, and you're going to deeply regret what you could have been when you see those who stepped out many years before.
And they're there.
And they are there now. You're going to regret it. It's going to be pain, deep pain. But that as an aside. Your question is, how do you know what to focus on? I can sing, I can dance, I can act. All that is an illusion. You can only do one thing per time. Not all your gifts are major gifts. You can't build businesses out of everything. Some gifts are there to support other gifts. Look, I have a gift of the gab. What does that mean? I speak very well. Today, for example, I'm not feeling too well. So I've stuttered quite a bit during this interview. But even when I stutter, I speak better than most people. It's my gift. It comes out when I speak on my show. It comes out when I speak to people and I'm mentoring them on a platform in church, universities, wherever. It comes when I write, because I write what I hear and what I would say. So I have a gift with words. But I have other gifts. I like to dress well.
You do. I
have an appreciation of African music. I know Yoruba music and African music like you will not believe. You can mention any Yoruba musician now. I bet you I can sing one of his songs. Hey, mention any Nigerian musician, Yoruba, Hausa, Igbo. I have a gift. But I realize that some of those gifts are supposed to support my primary gifts. So I dress very well. I like suits. But I realize that I'm not called to be a fashion designer or open a fashion house yet. If you ever see a TEJU Babyface line of accessories or suit, it will be in collaboration with somebody else later on down the line. But it won't be something that I powered by myself. So you must always locate your dominant gift. And you will know your dominant gift. They have been telling you since you were a child. Since I was a child, they were always telling me I was talkative. They always wrote it in my report card. He's talkative. So you have a dominant gift. That is the one you want to build on. Let all your other gifts support the dominant one.
That would take me to the last point, something you mentioned in the book, the principle of reinvention.
Yes.
So the fact that, look, you have come from acting, comedy, now speaking, now authoring. You have said down the line, giving us the hint that we might have the TEJU Babyface line. You might go into fashion. And you should never be afraid of saying, they can wake up and say, maybe he was never serious. He doesn't even know what he wants to be.
Yeah.
You can always reinvent yourself.
Yes.
Amazing.
You should always reinvent yourself.
You should always reinvent yourself.
Yes, look, everything in life is a means to an end. Where you start from is in all likelihood not where you're going to end up.
Exactly.
So you must. This is why you hear of people today. They're on top today, and 5 years later, you're like, hey, what happened to that guy? What happened to that guy was that guy camped around a revelation, and the revelation became tradition.
And you say you don't like Muti. You're doing all the Sean.
No. I didn't mean that. I didn't mean that.
Wow, the revelation.
You get a revelation per time. I heard somebody say once that don't tell us what God said, or don't act on what God said. You need to act on what God is saying at the moment. People get a revelation, they see the fruits around it, and they camp around it. You must always be willing to let go. You must reinvent. But here's the thing, when you are in line with destiny or with providence or with the creator, when you always yield, here's the thing. There will be a common thread to everything that you do. See all the things you've mentioned. I was an actor. I was a comedian. I started my own talk show. Now I'm a writer. I mentor people. If my voice had been taken away, I would have not been able to do any of those things. Any of those things. So like I said, my gift is the gift of the word, the gift of the gap. And as I keep reinventing, I keep opening up deeper.
It gets expressed in different
ways. As we
go,
let me leave you with an analogy or an illustration. You are like an onion. Your life is layer after layer, precept upon precept, line upon line. like an onion, the more we peel, the deeper we go into the core of the onion. And the more of the onion you peel, the less of the onion you see.
You see.
So that's you growing. The more they peel you back and you get to your core and the core of your gift, still the same onion. But you're getting to the core of the onion. The more they peel, the older you grow, the less time you have on earth. Until you get to the core of the onion in which there is nothing. That's how your life should be. At the end of your life, we should have peeled you back more powerfully, because the core of the onion is the most powerful part. And that's the part that people like to eat. When we get to your core at the end of your life, we should know all about you. You should have flavored enough soups and stews and food. And then there should be nothing left of you. You should have given your all to the world. What most people do is that they peel back one layer or two layers, then they leave the onion staying like that. Have you ever left onion standing before without anything? Of course you have.
It gets decayed.
Dry, decay, and it's good for nothing. You toss it in the bin. But the onions that has been peeled back, well, is in different stews, flavoring it all over the place. Now, that is how your life should be. Peel back, layer upon layer, till you get to the core.
Amazing. Amazing, amazing. I'm sure that I'm rendered speechless, absolutely speechless. Before we get to the end, look, whatever industry, creative sector, yes, but young, old, reinvention, you can be 60 watching this, you can be 18 watching this, you need to get a copy of this book. So where can people get a copy of The Secrets of the Streets?
Google is your friend.
Aha.
Just Google it.
Aha.
But it's on Jumia. It's at Latana Bookshop, and
I got this at Terra Culture.
You got it at Terra Culture. This book will be around for a long time, and the other books we're writing will join you. So eventually, even if you can't get it now for whatever reason, because you're an analog person living in a digital world, it's going to come to you. Don't worry. Just Google it. You'll find it.
Just Google it.
Yeah.
Thank you for being such an engaging, amazing guest. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you very much for inviting me. Thank you for the...
And on this note, we've come to the end of this episode of Chapters. I have been truly very touched, and I'm sure that you have been. Look, we have no reason. You know, the analogy of the onion was so powerful, and there's parts and sides of us that we need to constantly shed as a gift to the world. So the question I'm going to ask you or leave you with is, how many soups are you going to ensure that you flavor? You are the onion. Keep on opening yourself. Thank you so much for watching, and until the next episode of Chapters, God bless you.